Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit, from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. In case you're ever wondering where the name of the game is from, that's Invictus by William Ernest Henley.
I need you to understand that I had no idea that this actually came from something. I was just like, that's a great fucking name. This is what happens when I don't have, like, I'm like the person without the English or theater degree.
I spent a lot of time looking for a good name, and I found that, and I liked the way it ends.
Oh, it's so good.
You know, I am the captain of my soul is the line that really it struck me personally, and it sounded very Van Horst, and like, so that's where that came from. And so yeah, you are watching Wrath and Tears, a KULT Divinity Lost actual play stream. We have hit officially episode 50. This is episode 50. Episode 50 Mumble Mumble, if you count a couple of AMAs and the incomparable Red Intermission. But this is the Van Horst's 50th episode. This has been a long, strange trip that we are somehow not done with. 6 seasons in a movie. But I have never had 4 to 5 games expand so wonderfully and so well. A handful of years ago, I met Erica on the back porch of a cabin at a LARP. And that's the first time we met, essentially the first time we talked. And we fell into an easy kind of mind meld camaraderie very quickly. And from that chance meeting, very many things that are good in my life came from. Some of my best friends, some of my best memories are a direct result of being found and adopted by an extrovert, as the internet likes to say. So because it is episode 50 and because I am feeling very thankful today and thoughtful today, I do want to take the time to thank the people that helped us get to episode 50. And if anybody else wants to add some in, feel free. The first person I want to thank is Curtis. This would not work without Curtis. I've said it before, but I thought, 24 hours before we were supposed to go live that I was going to have to email people and say, I can't do this because I can't make my computer do this. I don't know how to do this. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize how much technical stuff there was on a Twitch stream. And then Curtis messages me and says, hi, I'm Curtis. I'm saving your life. It's not what he said, but that's what I heard. Curtis has done all of the audio visual work. He has made every intro and outro that you have seen. He has made us look organized and good and fantastic. He does sound work. He puts up with a fairly hectic schedule from 4 fabulous people who do cool things. Can't do this without him. Period, end of line. I'm glad he's here, glad we're still here. And I'm very thankful for him, both as a friend and as a coworker. That's as the demiurge, the one that nobody ever sees, but we all feel his invisible hand. Duke has been a good friend. So thank you. Thank you to the players. Erica, Kate, Elon, this has been a fantastic ride. Through you, I have learned a lot about storytelling and myself. You have helped me rekindle my love of horror storytelling and my love of horror as a genre. I have learned so much from the three of you, helping you through this and walking through this adventure together, and I look forward to doing more of it. Yeah. Thanks to Jesse, the fourth Van Horst. We'll see you soon. Many thanks to Samara, our ineffable red lady, for helping me with the red intermission and being a sounding board and a very good friend. Thank you to Caroline for playing the Lady Radiant, being a sounding board and giving me some of the best responses to my prose ever on the history of the planet. I don't know if you still watch the show, but I hope that you do. And I hope that you are still making delighted, horrified shrieks wherever you are. Selkie. Hi, Selkie. I know you're here. Selkie, who has been a mainstay and who has just absolutely single-handedly provided an astounding amount of laughter and aftercare for the four of us as they bombard us with the greatest memes ever made by man. But as always, I'll say it again, it is okay just to show up and enjoy the show. You're not obligated to do anything but have fun. So I could thank every single person that I remember being from the stream, but to the friends and strangers, we say thank you. We appreciate you. And so I think that's all. That's my long little rambling Academy Award speech. I'll hold this Mountain Dew bottle for a second. So that's what I have to say. If anybody else wants to say anything here at this kind of landmark, feel free.
I just want to say thank you to Ben for
that was
running
mine.
all of these stories.
Yeah, that was going to be mine too.
And I figured the three of us just wanted to say you've been the storyteller and the writer and the idea generator and the amazing prose and wonderful descriptions that can make my flesh crawl in a tabletop world. I'm a LARPer, so I never really deeply got into tabletop because I want to be surrounded by it. And you can tell these stories and describe them in such a way that it feels real, even sitting here on Zoom. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yay.
Yeah. Wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah.
Although now that I have looked at the fact that the Cathedral of Learning has a business suite, as a rentable business suite, but they have several, but one of them is like a 40-person conference area, and it's windowed on all four sides, so you can look out over Pittsburgh. It's probably as much as I make in a year, but it's fun to look at and daydream. I still one day want to have that everybody in one place live show in the Cathedral of Learning in the Citadel of Pittsburgh. But yeah, so 50 fucking episodes. Let's start telling the 50th story. So we had a little bit of calibration before we started recording today, and what we have decided is that there's going to be a brief time skip, and by brief time skip I mean like an hour. So we are going to
brief for us.
Brief for us.
Yes.
We're actually only filming this like a couple of days after the last episode came out, so it's all very nice and fresh, which I'm actually, that's nice. So the camera finds the Van Horsts. Let's start with that question. What have y'all done with your skin?
Go
Put it
back in the chest.
They go back in the chest.
Where they
Nice.
belong.
That's where they live.
I mean, are we just leaving the chest out there though? I feel like
Yeah. It's been
I feel
there
like
since we were like 4.
I feel like Matthew's like, shouldn't we bring it back with us? And like gets argued out of doing so by like the others. And it's like, but because Matthew's like a little dragon, he wants to sit on his hoard. And doesn't like leaving things out in the wilderness. So like I think that that's something that happens during that hour, is that little like back and forth.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like when we come back up to the top and there is the chest and the crumbling, like falling apart cathedral-ish area, Clara, at least, like it's a dance she's done 10 million times, starts gently taking off her skin cloak and rolling it up and folding it. And it's just, she's very used to, all right, we're done with our toys and we're done with our fur and we're done with our flesh. Now we put it away in the toy chest and we're going to go back home and hopefully don't skin our knees when we crawl all over the wall.
Yeah.
This is very much a dance and a set of motions they've gone through 10 million times, leaving these furs and these skins behind.
Oh, right. Bethany puts her dress back on because she was in a shift for all of this.
Yeah.
But they were kids, they stripped down to nothing to put the furs on because they couldn't get their clothes messy, among other things. But Bethany made do with just going down to a shift for the weird skin cathedral time. So Bethany also, just puts things back in the chest and like puts her dress back on and is just getting ready to go home.
And just there's a look up to Matthew. It'll be safe here. It always is.
Just worry that if there's
nobody comes here.
seal that's been broken of some sort.
This is where he left it for us.
Nobody comes here. It's our land.
All right.
I think the monsters in the shadows would kill them if they did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's heartening.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I just have this thought of this maid, like in like timeless, vaguely Victorian, like with the head wrap and everything else, like walking into the woods with an iron and an ironing board, going out to get the skin out of the trunk and iron it so it's not wrinkled. All right. Well, actually, that's a vaguely important piece of information we need today, Van Horsts. What is the name of he says, opening up the Google document where he will actually write this down this time, I swear. The name of the housekeeper.
Did we end up naming her?
Time or not?
I don't think so. We just named the new major domo.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was Charles Burke.
Yeah. Yes, correct. Say Mary is a very typical.
We wouldn't say her first name ever. She'd be Mrs.
No. Yeah.
It would just be Mrs. in her
That's
last
true.
name. So,
Okay, Google common Pittsburgh last names.
Yeah.
yes, please, because I'm just looking at my entire book of literature, like shelf of literature across from me, and I'm like, those are all really recognizable names, and that's unhelpful. Stevens. How about Stevens? Mrs. Stevens.
Miss Stevens.
That's
Stevens.
great.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. the wiretap heard me ask that question apparently and started giving me names upstairs.
Oh.
So
Great.
yeah, so helpful.
Mhm.
So yeah, okay. That's all I needed to know. That'll show up in a minute.
Yeah.
So what is when you return to the house, we'll say, towards dinner time, just for the sake of ease. What's your feeling? Like, what's your emotional state? You're coming home with learning some things about your father and who he was as a young man. And you now have some of his more revelatory notes on magic and other occult matters. So how are we feeling as we walk into the house?
Missing him. A little
Yeah.
nostalgic and yeah.
That's fair.
I think that Matthew might not recognize this, but Clara would. Is Bethany's very much still like when they were coming back from playing Little Queens, like being like slightly energized. There was an echo. Slightly energized and very sort of commanding, like small, like little child commanding, like I am confident and the princess of this place. Which is different than her like adult confidence that she had out in Vegas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that I talked about it a little bit in our last session, but like the revelation for Matthew was the knowledge that the love that their father grew for them and that the love that he had for them was not only something that was surprising just because of the cult aspect, but in fact that, was actively against the assumption that he was having. Like that this was a truly conditional love as opposed to unconditional. And that for Matthew, because Matthew's fucked up, that was incredibly validating and like made him feel very good about himself and about his siblings and about what they have earned. And it also has made him feel immensely guilty that they haven't done more to try to help their father's soul over the time that knowing that he is trapped in a place like Inferno, and that they have in many ways failed the trust in some way, like not the trust, but failed the love that he gave them by not performing it back. Because again, it's the idea that he's having of these performances of acts of love are to him almost or more important than love itself. And so for him, I think he's very somber. Going back, yeah, that's the face that you should be making. It's correct. Like somewhere there's like a meme again from Selkie that's like, yep, we all agree that Matthew's kind of trash. But like, it's that sort of thing where I think that he is feeling a weight of responsibility coming back.
Fair. As you now, do you follow the ancient ritual and climb up and over the wall, or do you go through the door that you now have a key to?
I feel that Matthew at least attempts to go through the door we have a key to, unless his sisters stop him and they're like, no, we must do the ritual.
I don't know that Bethany would stop him, but I think she climbs through the window no matter what.
Well, he's not gonna do it if he's like, there's a thing where like I feel like his hand's like on the door and he looks over and he's like, oh, this is what we're doing. Never mind.
Yeah, I feel like Clara on habit climbs through the window. Like it's just one of those things where you've taken this route so automatically, you keep driving that way, even though there's another better route right there. This is just habit. So not even thinking about it, not even really seeing the door, straight up and over the really uncomfortable way, which is both harder and easier as an adult because you're taller, but bodies hurt more now.
Yeah. It's climbing up stone walls is a lot more interesting after you've experienced the possibility of death.
Yeah.
That too.
Yeah. Well, as you all pursue this highly dignified activity, standing at the back door with a facial expression that is in the school of worried, but not immediately worried, but I don't like the way this sounds kind of worried, is David. Kind of in a slightly formal, parade rest, but he's at parade rest. He's not in an informal kind of civilian way. And in the lowered light of, the walls now are blocking a lot of the light from the sunset. You can see the slight reflective shine of his eyes. And he is doing the thing where he is seeing what you are doing, but he is also not seeing it in that like the very best of the help sort of way. Like, I am not seeing you climb over the garden wall. But whenever you're done climbing over the garden wall and have recovered your dignity and start walking towards me, I will suddenly realize you are there and start talking. And he says, go.
Oh, I was going to say, Matthew, I think will kind of instinctively like try to get a read on like levels of concern, since he's got like the link with David. Just that sort of like reaching out to like get an assessment, I guess.
The feeling that you get back is it's not confusion, it's David's life experience does not have context. Like, he's like, I know I don't like this, but I don't know why I don't like this. Like, I don't understand all the layers of meaning. So okay. He's very much the Horst from Ren and Stimpy. That no sir, I don't like it. It is like I disapprove, but in a general, non-specific way. Does he disapprove? And he says, very, very sotto voce, Miss Stevens was approached and questioned by two men who claimed to be federal agents while she was out picking up some necessaries today.
And the nature of questioning?
What seemed to be very simple things. What are they like? How long have you worked for them? Well, questions that Senator McCarthy could have very easily started a problem with. But Who are their friends? Who are their acquaintances? Have you ever seen them do anything that you would consider inappropriate? She says that she gave them nothing. But she's with the Major Domo now. She's quite upset. And she's upset on her behalf and seemingly on your behalf.
Understandable.
Yeah.
These agents, did they say their names to her ever?
They did. They introduced themselves as Agent Cold and Agent Indrid, which are about some incredible not names, to be informal, sir. Those do not sound like names, and if they were, they found them by tearing out a page of the phone book. Cold is meaningless, and Indrid, I have no idea what the hell that is. Apologies.
Seems we should go to the Major Domo and speak to them.
She could probably, at the very least, use a little bit of the personal touch.
Matthew doesn't turn his head to Clara, but his eyes immediately flick to Clara at that. It's yes, a woman's touch. You know how to do the emotions.
You have feelings, use them on her.
I can go check up on her and see just how bad the situation is. But we have nothing to hide. I will remind her and all of the staff of that. We are as all-American as it gets. All of our business is American. McCarthy can go fuck himself because we have nothing to hide. And we're really quite public people. The most private among us is Bethany, and even she's been out the last several months.
Yeah.
So as we talk to the staff about any other supposed agents coming around to ask about us, just remind them that we aren't shut-ins. We like publicity. We'll talk to people because we have nothing to hide. Let me go talk to Ms. Stevens.
Bethany wants to pull Matthew aside for a second as Clara goes off and say, if, as David said, they are impersonating federal agents, whoever they are, would that agency like to know that there are people impersonating some of their officers? I can't imagine they'd appreciate it.
So two things. One, during Clara's very valid speech, Matthew just has a moment where he looks at the sister that he is actively having a romantic relationship with, and then looks at the sister who is a lesbian, and is just okay. We don't have anything to hide.
The sister he's having a relationship with.
Communists. We don't have communists to hide.
But there's that sort of face journey that Matthew very quietly has. It's just but when he speaks, he does listen to.
You may be
Bethany's.
fucking your sister, but at least she's not a goddamn immigrant.
She's not a commie.
Oh my God. At least we're not commies. We don't believe in the right to labor. God.
Exactly.
But
the sass expressed by wrath and tears do not accurately reflect the.
But anyway. he does kind of take a moment and say, so there are two options here. One of these options, the one that I prefer, is that there are two people who are impersonating federal agents asking around about us. That's the one I prefer. The other option is that there are two federal agents using false names, as it does sometimes occur, who are asking around about us. And so one thing that I might be able to do is subtly reach out to some of my contacts and see if I can get a reading on if anyone else has been asking around about us, and maybe the possibility of finding out exactly who these people are. Now, when they're using false names, that's hard to do, but there are other ways of finding who someone is.
Yes.
So I can at least try, but we shouldn't only assume that just because they're using false names, that they're also false agents.
Of course.
That would be the preferred situation. And if so, we'll have leverage against them. But
if
it's a risk.
Aren't false agents, then knowing that there are agents looking into us is also something we should find out. I do agree. And yes, best to check before we show our hand. However, I feel that people with our name can be insulted.
I agree.
Or questioning our housekeeper when she's running errands.
Oh, I agree. And we've always been a staunch supporter of American values.
Of course.
Sure. Cough, cough.
Ben, what I was thinking of was using the influential friends to try to get some more information, get favors of like that sort. I don't know if that's something that can be used for that or not, if you don't think that it works for that, but it feels like that's a favor that one could ask for, is like...
I mean, why the fuck have influential friends if you can't influence the federal government?
That was kind of the idea, is like finding out like if these people are legit and like why they might be sent after us, if they are, is sort of what he'd want to do with that.
I entirely agree. I feel like that's a really good.
Use one of my mundane skills for once.
Yeah, I think it's great. What do you roll for that?
That is charisma.
Charisma.
Charismas. It's like it is, in my opinion, one of the more absurd ones in the book. It's incredibly broad.
Yeah, I mean that's
which isn't bad. Like, I'm a big fan, because not just because it's useful for me, but also because I think it lets you use it for a lot of like interesting things, and I like that the stuff that isn't necessarily magical is still very useful. I think that's a cool thing in the book.
I think it's one of those things, in my opinion, it was written to be vague so that people can fill in who or what their influential friends are, rather than be, hemmed in by one definition. So how about you roll influential friends, but let's have Clara talk to the housekeeper so that then Matthew has some good information to work with, hopefully.
Okay, sounds good.
Bethany, is there something you want to do in this moment, or are you...
No, Bethany wanted Matthew to do what he's doing.
Okay. Okay. Clara, it makes, like, she's in the kitchen. We all know where she is. She's sitting in the kitchen around that little table where the staff often eat their meals or have a quick break. It's where the cheap ashtray and the chipped mugs and the the half-eaten sandwiches with a napkin over them, so that the magical power of putting a napkin over your half-eaten sandwich keeps it from getting weird. But she's in the kitchen. The major domo is... you'd want to say fussing over her, but it's not fussing. It looks a little bit more like maintenance. It's like the thing that you do now is you get them a cup of coffee and you put a little splash of alcohol in it, and you get them a couple of crackers and maybe a cookie, and you put it all down because she's a delicate woman, so she just needs a little bit of like a light something. Like you can hear, you know, you can hear the 11th Archon, the patriarchy, you know, doing its thing.
Yeah, Clara steps in his direction. One, if the alcohol bottle is near, she'll pick it up again. If not, on her way, she will get some whiskey. And she'll be like, Mr. Burke, let me handle this. You're dismissed for the moment.
How about you roll read a person real quick for me, Erica?
Sure.
For those of you playing the home game, to vamp a little bit for Erica, the FBI has had an office in Pittsburgh since 1918. So they've been here the whole time.
Oh, what is that perception? It's intuition. Oh, I might have just made it. Because I don't. Yes. Oh, that's an 11. My perception sucks. My intuition is +2. Wow.
Okay.
Great.
Well, that's good at least.
Yes.
It makes sense that he's feeling this way, but the major domo is definitely in that, like, I am dismissed because I fucked up. He's and like after the way the morning went, and now, you know, after this, he's definitely, reasonably or not, he's definitely feeling some kind of way. Can you blame him?
I guess not, but Claire's not gonna like soothe his hurt feelings while this woman has actually been traumatized by supposed government agents.
No,
like,
just keeping you appraised of your
mind. Understood. Yeah. And that will be good to know for later. No, Claire's a soft heart. As she dismisses him and she sees like that momentary patriarchal kicked puppy, she does reach out gently to grasp his forearm and goes, "You're fine. This is fine. We're just going to have a woman-to-woman talk. It's fine."
Okay.
And she even gives his arm a little squeeze and then lets him go.
Yeah. The laws of his world are not designed to allow for, you know, someone who has hired him to give him a arm squeeze of comfort. So like he kind of makes some sort of like, and I appreciate it, like, you know, very I don't know what to do kind of body language, and then he scutters out of the room.
Yeah, it's fine.
The process being treated like a human being.
Yeah. She did this with David too. She has a bad habit of this, so it's fine.
A bad habit of treating people like people.
Yeah.
Stop humanizing the help.
She's a
You don't
softie.
expect it, and it makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
She thinks of them
adore
all as,
Clara.
they're all chorus girls and background actors to her. But they're background actors, so they're still actors. They get emotions. It's fine. Anyway, speaking of this other background actor she now needs to talk to, she's got the bottle of whiskey and she pulls out her own pack of cigarettes and her own lighter and kind of sets both on the table next to Mrs. Stevens. Or is it Mrs. Stevens or Ms.?
I was going to say
Mrs. Miss. Okay, next to Miss Stevens.
I put her at like late 20s.
Okay.
You know.
So she's still on the edge of spinster, but that's all right.
Starting to be the housekeeper.
So puts the cigarettes and the whiskey down and goes, I'm so sorry that happened. Have a cigarette. Certainly take more of a drink than whatever he gave you, because I'm certain you need it, and I'm also having one. Clara gets herself a tumbler and just pours straight whiskey. She's not bothering with the coffee.
In this era of makeup, it lacked a number of the fixatives and the other things that make modern makeup less smudgy. And so, Clara, you immediately see like the makeup of someone who has done some crying, but also has done it in that way of like, I am going to cry, but at the same time, I am going to like, you know, keep myself from looking messy. I'm going to look put together until I can finally, either in the bathroom or at home, like put a cold compress on my face, start over, and put a new face on. But you know, she's been upset, but she hasn't been
Super sloppy.
Yeah.
Clara lights a cigarette, offers it in her direction, and if she takes it, lights a second cigarette for herself.
She stares at it for a long minute. I mean, this is... When two social levels this far apart, when the one up here treats you like an equal, often that's a danger. So there was that minute of like, I'm just going to take this at face value. Like I'm you know, this would be a weird act to put on right now. So she accepts a cigarette. She says, thank you, takes a drag, and then with unexpected ferocity, kind of like sticks out her jaw very pugnaciously and says, I didn't tell them anything.
Good. You didn't have to. You weren't on a court stand. They're the ones that accosted you in the market of all places. Fucking rude.
They were polite, but they certainly weren't going to let me leave.
That's not polite. Then they might have polite voices, but that's not fucking polite.
Yes, ma'am. You're right. But they
I usually am, but don't let kind voices cow you into thinking they were being polite or they were on your side.
she gives you the yes, I am aware.
Tell me what happened.
There is a genteel, innocent sheepishness, like a little bit of a blush that sits up in her cheeks as she says, well, I went down into Ligonier. We needed some sugar cubes and a few other things and some more salt, and it was just a brief shopping trip. But whenever I came out of the grocers, I had my bag of things that we needed, and then they were just there. There was just one on each side of me, and they said hello, I think. And they said they wanted to ask me some questions. And I think we didn't move. I don't feel like we moved. But they asked me questions back and forth. One question, another question, one question, another question. Several of them, it was very... Ma'am, did you ever listen to Dimension X?
A few times, yes.
Did you ever listen to one of the episodes where there was a hypnotist and they played the woo-woo music and he did that very kind of, you're getting sleepy. Takes another drag of her cigarette, clearly kind of opening up a little bit. She says it felt a little bit like that. It felt like they were trying to, I don't want to say hypnotize me because I don't think that was the idea, but it felt like they wanted to, get in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And so they asked me about the Van Horsts and when did you leave? Excuse me. And when did you come home? And what was the mood like? And have you ever done anything that I would think was strange? And when's the last time you saw them go to church? When's the last time you saw them pray? What kind of music do they play at home? What do they listen to on the radio? Have you seen any books? What books are they reading? But I just essentially told them that you all seemed fine and everything seemed fine. And of course they go to church, and no, they don't tell me what church they go to. I don't ask those kinds of questions, and you don't tell me those kinds of answers. And I told them that the books that they read are the books that they read, and they're very nice books with leather covers and gold letters on the sides, and it's not my job to touch them or read them. So I can't really be telling a whole lot about any of that. And I know those weren't the answers that they wanted, but those are the answers they got from me.
You did an excellent job for being in an awful situation.
And it's not the first time I've had to give soft answers. Well, a man wants to know where you work. You give him you don't tell him exactly where you work. He wants to know how you're getting home. You don't tell him exactly how you're getting home.
Of course.
No, and I'm not. No, oh, I'm sorry. No, I'm not a spy for the Reds or anything else, ma'am. I'm just a young lady who knows what men are like.
Did they ask questions like that? Like the questions they're asking in the trials in DC?
It sounded like the start of them. Senator McCarthy, I understand what he was doing, but I feel like he dug a little deep for not a lot of water. more than once. And I think that what he was doing was right, but I think that the people that he put his eyes on weren't the right people.
Not often, no. But did they ask if we were party members?
No, they didn't. It was almost like they was trying to ask everything around the question they were trying to ask.
You're a smart girl. If you had to guess, what was that question that you didn't answer, that they were dodging?
It sounded to me like, I don't know the question, but it sounded to me like they already knew the answer, but they didn't have all the steps to it. You know, how, if someone's been doing something behind your back and you know it, but you just got to ask the questions until you finally get enough puzzle pieces together and then you know it. It felt like that. It felt like they knew something was happening, but it's like they were waiting for me to say just one particular thing that would let them off the leash. If that makes any sense.
Do you think it had anything to do with our father or the club he was a member of?
Oh, well, we all can't be responsible for the kind of things our fathers did. And anyway, that was a while ago. You know, it was a different time right after the war. When Korea was, and she clearly has read the newspaper that, you know, the communist threat that had been, you know, averted and everything else. But she says, I don't think so, because it's unless you're doing it in front of a big old camera, you know, it's not like people aren't looking for communists. You know, it's not like, you know, the Ruskies have gone anywhere. It is us or them, and, you know, the questions need to be asked, but I don't know. It could mean anything.
Did they
Awful strange men, though.
Yeah. Strange in that they didn't act quite right. Like they were acting and not really agents, maybe?
Maybe. Now, ma'am, I try real hard to be an open-hearted person and know that God makes everybody by hand, and so there's nobody that, you know, doesn't have God's fingerprints on them. But begging your pardon, God used his left hand on those two. They were clearly she saw something, but she is struggling internally to either come to grips with it, or it is on the edge of uncomfortably impolite, you know, or she doesn't want to say.
Clara pours her another drink.
And
It's
she
all right.
looks at,
It's just us. I won't tell anybody.
well, ma'am, you'll tell Mr. Van Horst, tell your sister, and I think that you should, because it's questions about all three of you. But
I won't tell public officers, and I won't tell the newspapers, and I won't tell the priest.
one of those men had lips, ma'am, as red as the reddest lipstick I've ever seen on anybody.
No.
But they weren't. It might have been lipstick. But not pretty. Not like he was some kind of a guy that like wore lipstick every day and figured out how to put it on or anything else like that. It was like it was like they're trying to be more convincing that they had a mouth or lips or something, because I could see their face move when they talked, but
That's good information to know.
you have entered into a story of medium to high strangeness. And you are fairly certain that what this lady is trying to describe is not someone who is, say, albino or has vitiligo. I trip over that word, or someone else, Yeah, or someone else who, for, completely normal, developmental reasons, would feel inclined to add some color to their face. This doesn't seem that.
Clara is gently getting the impression that these were, or at least one of them was, probably a not quite human creature trying to put on a human face. But she's not going to tell that to her poor maid.
No.
Who's already a little off kilter at the moment. Yeah.
She's trying really, really hard to suppress the weird. Like, she's like, that's one of the reasons why she struggled, because she's like, if I say it out loud, then I'm going to have to mentally reapproach it. Yeah, she's definitely, not interested in gaining the awakened template. She's trying to let the strangeness fade out of her memory.
Was that Agent KULT or Agent
Indrid? It was Agent Indrid. Yeah.
Agent Indrid. And before I let you go, and if you need the afternoon off, you take the afternoon off. It was bad enough you had to go through this, but did they ask anything about what happened 3 years ago? With that big fight? The night that I got real hurt?
They asked if you said anything about it. Did they ever talk about that thing, or do you help her get dressed? Have you ever seen the scars she says she has? But I'm not, ma'am, I wouldn't tell them that. No, like, I wouldn't, no. I wouldn't care if you had a tattoo of George Washington going from belly button to collarbone. I wouldn't tell him. Not that you do, ma'am, but
I appreciate. If anybody like this bothers you again, you just say you don't have to talk to them, and you come right back home. This is what we got lawyers for, all right?
And her eyes get real big, and like the seriousness of the situation just settles on her like an opposite of a relaxing stress blanket. She says, "Yes, ma'am. I think I understand. If it'd be all right with you, I wouldn't mind going into town with one of the boys next time. We need to pick some things up, if that's okay with you."
Of course, absolutely. You make certain for as long as you want, you don't go alone. You take one of the boys. We got plenty of them around here. Take one of them. Show them how to shop. They can learn.
Yes, ma'am. And
right.
You said the right thing, because you can see there's a little twinkle in her eye that she's got one in mind that she wouldn't mind being stuck in a car with for an hour or so. So, dear God, just don't send David with her.
No, that would be a bad choice.
No.
She needs a human boy.
Yes.
she needs a good
human boy.
Need to find yourself a good human boy.
Yes.
All right.
All right. Clara pulls out one more of her fancy cigarettes and leaves it on the edge of the ashtray. You sit here.
Yeah.
You relax as long as you need. And if you want one of the boys to drive you home tonight, make certain you get home safe, or this afternoon. You do whatever you need to take care of you. We're going to take care of it. It's going to be fine. All right?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Of course. Clara picks up and refills her own drink, and then heads back off to find the siblings.
Where are the sibs?
I think Matthew's on the phone. making some calls.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I made my roll earlier and got a base of 16, so that's a 19.
Okay.
So I feel like it's like one of those things where it's like, he's just like making like 5 calls. Yes, my secret power, the landline. My partner's like laughing in the background.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to expand that because there's like influential friends, moles, and network of contacts are all good.
Yeah, like I'm happy to like get more stuff.
Yeah,
I haven't like actually given a new thing on that feed forever. So like I'm all for like him like as he's expanding his connections, like putting in more stuff. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You have some influential friends, like you at Matthew Van Horst's social level. People like mayors and governors and district attorneys and all of those other power brokers. At the city and county level, at the very least. There's lots of important people went to school at the Van Horst wing of Pitt, and so on and so forth. So, yeah. So, what do you want to know? I mean, you check in. Let's maybe you started to make some phone calls, and then you see Clara, who's clearly finished her little interview. So let's have you guys touch base.
I think that his first initial stuff is just like are these actually FBI, like federal, not FBI, but federal agents? And then and for anything else, he needs to touch base with Clara. So, how's she doing?
She's doing all right. Shaken up, most certainly, but she's tough. She's actually a pretty tough kid. And I don't think she actually gave them anything, but they were asking around things, and probably the most important thing that she described is the one that was named Agent Indrid. Didn't really seem to have a completely normal mouth. She described it as if he had used lipstick to paint on a mouth, and it was messy, and it wasn't like somebody was just using lipstick to make themselves look better.
Well,
I would clearly have to see these men, maybe these creatures, to confirm. But the way that she was talking about it, it very much sounded like these were things that were trying to put on human faces, and her mind did not want to acknowledge that.
I was about to say that may narrow things down of whether or not they're federal agents, but it really doesn't, does it?
No.
There's every chance that there are creatures like this in the highest echelons of our government. So we've certainly seen everything in places of power. We're in places of power, and though we're fully human, one can't exactly call us exactly the norm. So
they were not asking if we were communists. So one topic of the day is not something that came up.
What did they ask?
About our somewhat everyday lives when we left home, when we came back, what our religion is like, if we go to church. They asked her, I asked about the incident 3 years ago. They apparently asked her if I have scars from it. She told them nothing, and that was a very rude question, apparently, which it was. But it almost sounds to me like they're asking if we are in a cult or actually in a regular religious organization, or if we are human ourselves. Do we take injury? Do we take lingering injury?
Possibly that. I will say, asking what our religion is and if we go to church, that is a very common question to ask if someone's with the Reds.
But they didn't
So it
ask
could
if
be
we had
both.
any. It could, but if we had any communist affiliations, if we had any party affiliations, any half of those questions, which McCarthy has spent the last 3 years pounding down Washington doors with, they didn't ask.
Did they ask around it, like who our friends were?
No, they were asking about us, our habits. I will be very curious what your friends in higher places say. If anybody knows about a search on for us.
I think that's the way to try to ferret it out, frankly, is instead of focusing on them, which could go under any aliases or any statements, to focus on if there's word of us. If there's something as large as a investigation into us in the government, then that's going to have ripple effects enough for people to hear. And if it isn't, well, in some ways, that's both more and less concerning.
Being asked about is a scandal all by itself in this day and age.
Yeah, That's why Matthew's like, no, it still sounds like commie. Like they're asking for commies. Just even innocuous questions still could count. If anything, if our methods have taught me anything, it's that you have to come at your enemies both through the mundane and the mystical. And I'm not going to rule out the fact that our enemies know the same about us. We have our own vulnerabilities in that either area. I'll make some more calls. Bethany, do you know if perhaps in Father's books there might be anything that could give us a hint on what might cause someone to have at least the traits that were mentioned? The strangely red mouth.
I can look.
Okay.
We'll get to the bottom of this. For now, though, it may be good for people to not go on errands alone.
I already told her that. She's going to take one of the boys with her anytime she goes. Though to be fair, we should tell the boys not to go alone either.
That's what I was going to say. I think that it might be best for everyone in the household at this time to be perhaps paired up. I will say it'll be frustrating. It'll leave some short staffing, but I think that hopefully it'll be temporary. I think that it's a good idea, both because of the fact that it'll provide them more security, and frankly, it'll provide us more security in case someone is less loyal.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, why don't you finish your calls? I can sit with Bethany and start picking through books.
All right.
Mhm.
All right, let's handle the calls and then let's handle the books. Matthew, your friends of influence, you get what you want. So you want to know if these are actually real federal agents, right? That's the beginning of the question.
Yeah, that's the first one.
So you don't really have a direct contact. Like, you don't have a person that you're on a first name basis with in the FBI. An oversight that you are currently inspired to rectify. But what you are friends with is the DA. And he knows people inside the bureau. There's enough job overlap there that sometimes people go and get lunch together.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you say, I need to know if these two names and vague descriptions are the real deal or not, he says, oh, excuse me. He says, absolutely, yeah, no problem. He says, if he's kind of offended on your behalf and on his behalf, like in several different ways, which is kind of entertaining. Because he's like, if they're not actual FBI agents, there's people walking around like my legal jurisdiction pretending to be FBI agents. We're going to put the kibosh on that. Toot sweet. Second of all, if the Bureau is actually questioning Americans, I'd like to know why. And then that's kind of the thing that like we normally try to talk about. So he's got a couple bees in his bonnet about this. So that's one phone call. Can you think of like, you're going to get great information either way, but can you think of essentially any other flavor text, a person that you would contact?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the people that he would probably contact, who might have like an ear to the ground, other than like police, would probably be anyone like in city government, possibly, who might have like heard of like, because like if he's being investigated, his files are going to start being pulled, his business things are going to be pulled. Like there are certain types of like behind the scenes things that may have needed permits or other sorts of stuff to look at. So like that's sort of what he's looking at, is like, if they're doing this through the federal government, they actually have to like go through the actual proper procedures. If they're not, then they don't. So that's what he's kind of looking at. He might, if it's not something that would be city, then it might be that he might have like if there's someone in DC that he knows or something like that.
I'm sure. Especially if we're going to develop out a couple more of the advantages, because I'm sure that if we sit down and did all of the math for all of the XP that you guys have earned, I'm sure that there's at least a dozen advancements sitting in everybody's bank.
Yeah, like what I was looking at is probably network of contacts, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So you get back a couple of pieces of information. One is, now at this point the DA is actually, when he returns your call, he's actually kind of pissed. And he's upset in a way that he's letting you see. Because the response that he got was very boilerplate, and it was a non-answer.
Well, that implies that that answer is that yes, it is federal.
Well, what they say is, and I'm sure that Elon would be able to like turn this into better legal speak than I am. But essentially, they say, you know, we do have a number of agents in the field conducting several like low-level fact-finding investigations. And, you know, the exact location and name of those agents is typically kept private. You know, until such a time as subpoenas or testimonies are required or issued. It's the perfect non-answer.
Oh yeah.
It's like, you know, yes, there are FBI agents. Yes, they exist. Yes, they ask questions.
Yeah.
Were those two FBI agents? OPSEC says I can't tell you.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is not how the Bureau is supposed to talk to the DA. Like that's not that's why my impression is that it might be that, because they're being so obfuscated. I don't know for sure, and Matthew doesn't know for sure, and I'm not saying that you're saying that like that I'll turn around and be like if they aren't, but like that's where his sort of thought process is. If they're obfuscating so much, there's something that they're obfuscating. The real thing is that depending on like whether you want to play the leitmotif in a major or minor key, that would also be the perfect answer for we don't know who the fuck they are, but if we say that, it's a problem.
Ooh, I didn't think of that either, and that works too.
Yeah.
Okay, that was definitely, yeah, I appreciate you saying that because I would not have caught on to that.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a like, the answer is whatever you want it to be, and that's why the DA is offended currently.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Because I feel like he got the fancy pants equivalent of like, I don't know, man, what do you think?
Yeah. Which certainly is a microcosm of federal and city-state interactions.
I'm sure it is. I just assume that nobody works together and that's always going to be in character for any time in any place. But that's not. The DA, however, is offended. So he is going to do some asking around because there have been some Bureau-related prosecutions that have happened. And so he's got a secretary combing through those files looking for the names of the agents. Because he's like, if I go through 20 years of documents and I do not find a single Agent Indrid or Agent Cold, I'm going to have a very different opinion than if their name comes up 10 times. But in the meantime, from the city, and here's the real two-eyebrower, the only result that you get was actually from the city planning office. Two agents showed up, identified themselves, and then asked to see the blueprints to the Van Horst estate that are on file.
Love that.
Mhm.
Did they give their names?
Yes, Agent Cold and Agent Indrid
Great, love it.
from the agency.
The agency.
The agency.
That's very specific.
You are on the phone with someone who is realizing how non-specific they were.
Yeah, like I feel like Matthew just has a pause when they say the agency and just says, well, that's very specific.
And there is some dead ass air on the other side of that phone. I am sure that in Elon's life he has had that, like, and you said what to who? Yeah, that's the you what? Where? Was the person in the corner of the room typing? So yeah. She said they were only in there for like a half an hour. They didn't take anything with them. But when the clerk at the office popped in to check on them, she said that one of them was like dangling a necklace above the plans. Like a piece of cut crystal on a little like leather lanyard, and they were dangling it above the plans. And her general words were, and that's not anything I've ever seen at the First Presbyterian Church, so I like that not at all. And I told them that if they wanted to do that, they could do that on their own time with their own paper.
So they were holding his response is effectively, that is very strange, and you of course you did the right thing. And can you keep me updated if they come back?
Absolutely. I hope that you get this mystery figured out, but I wouldn't mind if they never came back. This is... It was weird at the time and getting weirder by the minute.
It certainly sounds like something off the book is happening.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your assistance.
Happy to help, Mr. Van Horst.
We'll let them go after some light back and forth.
Yeah. Because, you can't just hang up. You've got to give everybody the Minnesota goodbye.
You got to do the thing with all that and the glad handing effectively of it.
Yeah. How's your mom and them?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. Do you have any other sort of avenues of information, or do you feel like you've got enough?
I mean, at this point, he's pretty sure these are probably not actual agents, because again, it's that sort of thing of that's real vague. And actual agency is actual agency names get you further. And there's nothing to be gained from just saying the agency, because then you're not trying to say that it's not like you're undercover and you're trying to hide that you're agents. So that's sort of where he's at. He'll relay that back to the sisters. He's still going to be wary of it because who knows what connections they might have. But he will also tell Bethany about the weird dangling.
They had a pendulum.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
I mean, yes, it's 100% what it sounds like. She's just like actually Matthew, like they had a pendulum.
I don't know what it could mean.
Simple divining, usually. I don't know what they're looking for on the plans that they think that specific pendulum will zero in on.
But the fact that they think that they have enough to do something that specific is
they think
an alarm bell all by itself.
Yeah. And Bethany's thinking about, the trunk, but also that door in the basement and whatever other weird shit around the house that she hasn't found yet, or stuff in Papa's study, or like what of the weird stuff at home are they specifically looking for?
Yeah.
Somewhere she's still got a jar of Metropolis maggots around here because she had to find new ones in Vegas. So she still has the old ones in a jar. Like, she has no idea what they're looking for, but they're looking for a magic thing, is her assumption, because they're using a magic to do so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this is a pretty interesting time to be a member of an agency.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of terrible things are happening in a bunch of alphabet soup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Bethany, if you want to dig through all of the books, I could take one of the boys and run down to the plans office and get a copy of our plans. And then maybe you could also use a pendulum?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's view it with some magic and try to figure out what
they were looking
trying
for
to divine.
Yeah. Why don't you do that? Why don't you see if you can get... Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea.
Plans. Why don't we do that?
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
great.
I'm going to aside for a minute to talk to all of the storytellers out that might be listening to this ever. If one of your players has a really great idea, make it the right answer. Like, even if in your head at your lunch break as you are writing down your notes, that's not the right answer. If they have a great idea, go, yeah, and just make it the right answer.
That's a good one. Yeah.
But you don't, but it doesn't always have to be like, you are correct and here is all of the cookies, but use it to, like, whatever they do, use it to further the story. Like, just dead ends aren't fun unless, it's a dramatic dead end, but story dead ends aren't fun. Roll forward. So.
Yeah.
So, okay. It is about time for us to take our break. So do we want to take a quick break and then have a little bit on the end of this?
Sounds good to me.
Talk to Bethany a little bit and have Clara and a boy find out something strange?
Yeah.
All right. So I have no idea what time it is. We're recording this. Time is a flat circle. So at approximately 10 minutes from an undisclosed time, we will see you again. Please go get something to drink. Ciao. Hello and welcome back. Let's find out what's happening next. Clara, you were gonna get essentially a bodyguard. Set a good example for the other gals of the house. So, are you bringing one of the more strapping young men, someone that works with the horses or just kind of a job's body, or are you bringing David?
Probably David out of sheer habit, unless Matthew or Bethany wants him to stay back in the house. Like, David's our guy.
He is kind of the universal soldier, so one could say.
Yeah.
David.
Matthew's a fan of him going with.
Mm-hmm.
So, Clara, when David brings the car around, it is the car that you sit in the back seat of, typically, where he sits as a chauffeur. Is that how you're going to, or are you going to sit up front with him?
No, she'll sit in the back. She's made enough people of a different class awkward today.
Yes. We've disrupted the proles enough. So yeah, the drive is painless. David is, as always, a good driver. And you get to the records office. And when you get there, David does the thing where he opens his whole mouth and you can see him take a breath with his mouth and his nose at the same time. It's a very big cat. It's one of the very few here's the word of the day, biopredatory things that he does. And so he I don't like the way this smells. It could just be me, ma'am.
No, we know those people thing were here. So keep your nose open.
There is a very quiet but noticeable to Clara sound of well-oiled, high surface finish metal sliding across itself as David's reality kind of goes to the next DEFCON. Go from DEFCON 5 to DEFCON 4. But he gets the door for you and does all of those good things. Oh my goodness. Oh, there we go. Sorry. So, the records office, the clerk is there. You're fairly certain it's only been probably an hour since Matthew got off the phone, so it's probably the same lady. Do you obfuscate at all, or are you just, I'm Clara Van Horst and I'd like to look at the plans for our estate, or is there a layer of subterfuge that you're going to use?
No. She just says, "Hi, you spoke with my brother earlier. I'm Clara Van Horst. I was wondering if I could get a copy of the plans that you showed the agents from the agency earlier."
Absolutely, yes. I didn't even put them away. Once
Perfect.
Once things felt a little strange, I just left everything alone. So
If you could just show me where they are, that would be amazing.
yeah, absolutely, ma'am. And she leads you, and it's, so just reach back into your childhood with all of those beautiful giant flat drawers full of the blueprints and the rolls of everything. It's very, very tactile and very paper. And there they are laid out. It is your house. Whatever it's officially called. If it's the Van Horst estate or the whatever house or whatever it's called in the original architectural drawings. These ones were updated. Oh, excuse me. These ones were updated about halfway through World War II, which is, well, that makes sense because there was the event right at the beginning of World War II that is the thing that hurt Papa Mal. and kind of sent him on his final journeys. And now putting things together, that is probably the time that he broke away from the Royal Phoenix Society.
Mm-hmm.
So there was probably an amount of housework that had to be done.
Yeah.
After that, if nothing else, repairs require, enough repairs requiring replacement, da 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 da. So they're out there, and they're beautiful, thick, rich, heavy paper. This is the good stuff. The beautiful thick plans, the kind that feel good and they make that good paper noise whenever you touch them or roll them. And the thing that grabs you very quickly, because it is a dot of bright color on this generally monochromatic thing. Clara, you have seen your fair share of lipstick transfer marks on collars and on tissues doing this, and in various places, Matthew. And so you know exactly what it looks like. It is a lipstick transfer. It is, somebody had smudging lipstick and they touched their mouth and then they put their finger on the paper with that, just thoughtlessly. And there is a little part of a finger pad, a little bit of a fingerprint there. Right over Bethany's room.
She looks to David and makes certain that he's getting a chance to scent anything that he wants to. And then
he's just got his look of generalized disapproval of that, just like, yes, this is giving me the weird feelings, but I don't have any actionable information.
All right. And then she starts very carefully rolling the plans up. Goes, I would like to, do we check these out or can I just bring a copy home?
Typically, you're not supposed to take them home. These are the city plans. These are these are the references that the city has. Da 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 da. But anyway, Clara, how about you roll influence a person, or if you have something more specific, feel free to bust that out at this moment as well.
That's good. And she does say, oh, but my brother needs to see them, and you know how busy he is. He couldn't be here. I'll bring them right back tomorrow. Oh, well, that's a nice roll. Does influence other charisma? If so, that's going to be over 16.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's 17.
Yes.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that every single piece of missing documentation has started with, I'll bring it back tomorrow. You do manage to get what you want from her. And you can take this paper home. You shouldn't be able to. This is not the right thing. This is not something that you should be allowed to do, but you are Clara Van Horst and you are in person, and so you get what you want.
Excellent. All right, so she neatly rolls it up and goes, thank you. My brother will be so thankful. I'll bring it back tomorrow. I won't tell anybody.
So I'm certainly not going to tell anybody either.
Cute big eyes. She and David whiff out of there and back home with our borrowed goods.
David pauses as he comes out of the office. And then his threat language increases. like if you could imagine that an entire person's body just had their safety switch go from safe to semi-automatic, like that just happened from head to toe. And he now smoothly stalks down the sidewalk to an alley that's just a little bit away from where you were, and stops and stares into it. Not like at a person height, like he's not staring at a person in the alley. He's staring at something on the ground and looks at it and then crouches down and picks up a hat. A black, probably fedora. I might be corrected by the more sartorially minded people. It's the G-Man hat.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And there is a handkerchief tucked in it. And the handkerchief is damp. The wrong word, but the right word would be to say unctuous. It has absorbed something slightly greasy, slightly gelatinous. But the thing that he kind of turns it over and makes a face at it and then brings it over to you is there is a big wipe-off smear of just absolute bright red lipstick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even like, and it is like hooker red. It is like, it is leggy dame in a noir novel red.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the color that someone would pick if they really wanted to just pretend that they had lips. You know, like this is not a color where someone would look at you know, colors available at a makeup counter and say, yes, give me that. That looks like people colors.
Is it a color that Clara wears a lot?
Certainly you have a color that looks very similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's you have I mean you've got fuck me red lipstick.
Yes,
you know,
yes,
it's
yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely it's definitely the right genus. It might not be the same species, but you know, that doesn't mean a whole lot. It just, you know, it's also clearly not in its natural state, so the color might be off, but it is definitely a red. And the reason I'm leaning into saying that it's that bright is that it's disconcertingly incorrect.
Yeah.
That this is not how someone who knows normal human people things, this is not the color that a normal human people thing would pick.
Yeah.
To do what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Clara looks at it in a moment, like kind of gets a little shiver and goes, just bring that back home too. I just want Bethany and Matthew, I want them to see all of this. Just bring it all home.
Yeah. That's fine. David doesn't like it, but he doesn't like it not in a violent way. He's just like, I don't like it. I don't like what it looks like. I don't like what it smells like. I don't like what it might mean. I'm just against it.
Yeah.
Like, but the drive home is painless. David's a little bit more alert. Like definitely he's on a, he's on a higher gear. So it takes like an extra maybe 10 minutes. There's some extra turns, and the David being safe thing, which is familiar now, but he does that extra layer of, that car followed me for 2 blocks, we're going to do something weird. Sort of.
Yeah.
But the thing that's interesting about David is that he often calls his moves out loud to you 3. Very, like, unless he's like, I have to react now to save lives, which is not really an experience you guys have had in the car. But he'll normally be like, that car's been behind us for 2 blocks. I'm going to make a couple turns. That kind of, calling the shot,
Yeah.
So when he says, that blue Ford's, turned the same way as we have for 3 times, I'm gonna give it a little shimmy and see what shakes off. So, but you don't seem to be followed. Although, how does it feel to worry about being followed?
She's chain smoking the whole way home.
Fair. Coping with nicotine.
Yeah, it's
worked for the entire generation.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's trying not to look or feel paranoid, but she definitely does, and keeps all of the things in the back seat with her, like, protectively. That's their
Fair.
evidence. They're going to get to the bottom of this, and yeah.
Damn it. Okay. Well, you return home pretty painlessly, pretty bloodlessly. And straight to Bethany, I presume?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, I don't know where you want these things. I've got plenty of things for you to look over. One, including the map of our house. We need a big flat table, so either the dining room table or something downstairs.
There are
And
a half a dozen options for big flat tables in the house.
And David found this in the alleyway. She pulls out the fedora and the hanky.
It's like, yeah, Papa's magic library is sort of like flat table there situation, whether that's his study or actually in the library with some like weird occulto section hidden somewhere. But wherever that is, wherever the magic books lives, she's assuming there's a big old table. We're going to sit there and do this thing.
Well, now that there's no reason to hide, I imagine that a large portion of the Magico books has gone up to the far more comfortable library. Where the big plush chairs and the nice ashtrays are.
Yeah.
I imagine that Bethany has the chair of reading.
Yes, Bethany has the chair of reading, and she will be. Thank you.
Yeah. So the plans are rolled out, and they are as I described. There are no surprises except for the little, half a, like the single index fingerprint in bright red on your room.
Yeah, that's weird and surprising. But also, and I'm gonna run for 2 seconds to grab a prop thing because I can.
While Kate's getting a prop thing, Clara does also look for Matthew. Like, once she hands over the goods, she wants Matthew because she's scared. She doesn't like being scared. She doesn't really show it, but like she's grabbing for Matthew's arm and kind of tucking it against him. And he definitely will know she's unsettled.
He will basically just like embrace her to him and like check in effectively.
Yeah.
So Bethany is, as because they had been warned and a thing, and she suspects that the pendulum went over her room and that's why the smudge is there. But just to do a confirmation, she'll take her own and concentrate on it and see what it do.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that the thing that I want to end on just popped into my head. So before I describe what Bethany is experiencing, is there any kind of last minute things that we want to hit?
If we're ending on a thing with the pendulum, can we have done the book thing first? Because that was the thing.
Yeah.
The like
Yes.
her
Clara was gone. Yeah.
of what we think the people are, maybe of the weird goo.
Yeah, did you roll on occult library?
I did not. I will roll a thing now. I don't know what I add to it. I don't know what we want to call that thing.
Well, I'm looking in the index right now, but I am almost entirely certain that occult library is someone is currently yelling in the Twitch. Occult library, advantage, page 94 in my copy. And if you didn't think you have one now.
Yes.
So you roll plus reason.
Well, that's gonna be bad. She has no reason, guys. I mean, it's an 11. I rolled an 11, but her reason for investigate, I'm pretty sure, is a +0.
That's fine.
Yep. So it's an 11.
You can ask the GM one question from the list below. Which higher power does this have connections to? What do I need to do to exercise or control this being? Which dimension is this associated with? And what must I do to protect myself from it?
Ooh, last one, please.
Your best guess right now, based off kind of like, so like, let's go over what we've kind of intuited or heard described. There's kind of a shapelessness to them. There's a blandness to them. It seems like their methodology is vaguely impersonating authority figures.
Yeah.
Not very well. So just kind of being like, Invader Zim, I am government man sent from the government. And so you're not entirely certain. Once again, one of your father's flaws, at least on a magical level, was his compulsion to over-define things almost unto like a fractal level of separation. But to you, your best guess is that this is somewhere like in the homunculus. Sort of a artificial thing made by something else to perform a task. That hits quickly. That hit seems to hit the highest numbers of things. The best way to protect yourself from homunculus is to destroy it. They're usually generally as squishy as a human. Which is on the scale of what you guys can do, pretty damn squishy. You could all, there's also kind of every dispelling ritual might work. So salt or powdered iron or anvil dust or brick dust or such and such a tea or an incense or holy water. It's kind of a like
catch as,
yeah, make a little almost human to do stuff you tell it to is one of the things, is one of the carcerizations of magic. Everybody eventually gets there. So it's very much just whatever your practice calls for in the get rid of things you don't want technique is the right answer. They're also not very smart typically. They're not hyper intelligent. They're very single-minded, and it seems like this one clearly lives in a world of vagueness. where the questions it asks are very sort of vague, and it presents itself as kind of sort of vague. And so it's that like, what's the thing what's the thing where someone says something but doesn't finish saying it and then you fill in the blanks? The thing that comes to mind is sociatic terrorism, which I know isn't exactly that, but that, you know, won't someone rid me of this troublesome priest?
Yeah.
You know, and it, because it's that kind of like, have you noticed it? And so with that in mind, the vagueness of the questions start to make sense. It's, have you noticed anything about them? What do they do? And so that idea that this creature is essentially creating gaps that humans are compelled to fill, because we are creatures that enjoy specificity. So it's sneaky, it's shitty. It's kind of like, all right, that's an interesting way to get answers to questions. Just be just vague enough that they're almost compelled to finish defining what you're asking. But yeah, I mean, they usually fall apart the way a normal human does. You know, if you take enough of their pieces off or out, they tend to fall down and stay down. You know, however, Bethany imagines a go away ritual will work. You've leaned into like salt a couple times, so
that's one of hers. Is salt.
So maybe like salt, you know, so maybe like clean salt and like maybe some kind of an oil, you know, salt and oil probably is a good like catch-all troubleshooter. So
she made David do earlier.
Exactly. And it worked, or at least it seemed like it worked, you know. So maybe you need to make some go away. Yeah. But the important thing is that these things are if they are not directly made, they are directed.
Yes.
Even if somebody found these creatures in the wild, somebody has aimed them.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that is the thing that she most relates to her siblings, is that she's not too worried about the faceless men. As now she's calling the homunculi. But she's not too worried about the faceless men, as they are beings that can be dealt with, but they are beings that are being controlled by someone else who doesn't want to face us and is using them instead to ask questions about us.
Is there any way that we can use these faceless men to trace back to their control?
Potentially, if we could break that control and wrest them away from it and then send them back to their, like, they work on directive and drive. And so if we could control them and say, who sent you to us, show us, they'd go toddling off back that way. But we'd have to break control first. And I don't know who's controlling them or how strong their control is, and it might be easier, safer, better to dispatch of the probe rather than send it back. It all depends. We can certainly try.
I was just wondering if it's similar to puppet strings, whether or not we could trace them.
It's a good question. You'd have to get your hands on one.
Yeah.
Mostly intact.
Yes, we'd have to catch one first.
Unless they're surprisingly something or other, like David could essentially pick one up and stuff it in the car trunk.
Could say
that seems to be the next order of business.
And potentially we can use the objects that Clara and David brought back, to find them, find more about them. locate them as they're attempting to locate us? Certainly. They left traces.
That they did.
If David feels up to going hunting, I'm not opposed to sending him on a hunt.
From what you said, he didn't appreciate their presence.
No, he did not.
I wonder why. I mean, they're distasteful, but there seems to be a viscerality to it.
We can finish with the map and ask him.
Let's look at the map.
Bethany, you hang the pendulum and you do whatever like small internal exercises are necessary to get it going. I don't know if that means empty your mind or fill it. But as it definitely starts pulling towards your bedroom as well. Now, there's a very good chance that what it's pulling to is the lipstick mark. So, but as you let it gently pull you over, as soon as you get over it, it straightens out, zink, and holds itself taut. And almost like a laser printer, it's like it follows a track in the lipstick. And as it does, you don't want to say that it's making it appear, but you think that this act is making what the transfer was more clear to you. It puts you in mind of your brother's tie tack. It's not the same symbol, but that kind of vaguely geometrical sort of Solomonic sort of seal comes to mind. But as it does this and it brings to mind, you see that essentially the fingerprint transfer from the pad of its finger was one of the symbols of one of the archons.
And we find out which one.
Would you like to?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Gebura, the judge, the gatekeeper, the labyrinth of law. The Archon represents the conservative forces in society. He enforces laws and social norms, no matter how relevant or just they are, and punishes any who refuse to obey. People who go against his will are harassed, tortured, browbeaten, and humiliated until they break. Gebura acts through government agencies, and his servants can be found in positions of leadership. His principle is law. His symbol is a scale of patinate copper, an executioner's sword, and a law book in an indecipherable language. He often works alongside Kether, as hierarchy and law often support each other.
Goody.
Great.
Fine.
Mm-hmm. And he's interested in me. That's so very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Bethany, transgressive, what?
Little old me, I just stay at home.
Being gay.
Being gay.
And going about with the red lady.
She's very asleep.
Oh, she's very asleep.
Saying.
And if I don't change that soon, Samara will drive from where she lives to throttle me like Bart Simpson.
Let them go on a date.
I'm not against it. It's just logistics. We always think about it at like the last 10 minutes of stream.
I will say that now I'm just getting the image of I will show you the world, like Aladdin style, except it's the red lady and it's just like rivers of blood.
Yeah, I will show you the world, and it's just all the animated scenes from Pink Floyd's The Wall. So yeah, new Archon has entered the chat.
Mm-hmm.
May you live in interesting times. May you gain the notice of those in high places.
Mm-hmm.
And the worst part was that information does not make it any more or less clear as to whether or not Agents KULT and Indrid are actually agents.
Nope. Sure does not.
Yeah, they're definitely not human, but they could still be agents.
Mm-hmm.
Ain't that a son of a bitch?
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, episode 50. Things are changing.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Congratulations.
We trapped one Archon on Earth. How many of them are there? Fuck y'all.
When you...
So
Mm-hmm.
we may have, I don't know, fought the law or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now I really want like a really great mashup of like I fought the law and a bunch of Drudge Dredd quotes.
Look, we're very persuasive. If we could just talk to Archon, we could use some allies also. Maybe.
Oh yeah,
So-
that worked really well last time we tried to talk to someone and was like, hey, let us rule over your glorious people and I'll have these cool masks. And then he was like, yeah, come on down. This won't end in a horrifying slaughter.
You won't do yourself a whole ass genocide.
Fine.
Every so often it's important to be like, I'd like to take a moment to remember that they committed genocide.
Yeah.
We're
Bad
We're
people.
awful. We are bad people.
Hashtag the worst.
Yeah.
Okay.
But good times.
Yeah. So 50 episodes in the chute. Here's to
episodes.
however many more.
Mhm.
Here's to however many we have, as long as it's fun and we continue to find time to do it. And if we need a break, I think I've got another Red Intermission idea floating around.
Awesome.
So,
all right.
all right.
Been good.
So we are going to call it a night. And we thank you all for watching. Probably at least one of us is currently in the chat. But no, we thank you for watching. We thank you for being our friends.
Molly's
and we
still
thank you
here.
for taking care.
Aw.
Yay, cat cam.
Cat
Yeah,
cam.
Molly is still
Hashtag
here.
cat cam.
Has been the whole time. Bye late. But yes, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night, and thank you very much.
Good night.